And we are ready to talk On the Rocks. This is the third of many A24 collaborations with Apple TV Plus after the two struck a multi-year distribution deal in 2018, which I actually forgot that they did that.
Very smart
but
for
they
Apple.
did. I was going to say very smart for Apple, and I even think smart for A24 too. I think it's I think it was at the right time because they struck this deal in 2018, and A24 does not. They really like the theatrical engagement, and I appreciate that they do. Yeah. So they don't send a lot of their stuff to streaming only. A lot of their stuff goes to theaters and enjoys a mostly fruitful run before it even comes to streaming. But this is on Apple TV Plus right now. You can watch it with a subscription, and it's got Rashida Jones, Bill Murray's in it. Marlon Wayans is in it in a very different Marlon Wayans way. Like, yeah, it was almost surprised. I mean, especially if you've seen Marlon Wayans god-awful Netflix movies like Sextuplets or
the one in the elevator, whatever the hell it is, where he keeps reliving the same day over and over again.
Naked.
Thank you.
Yes. Yeah, I was kept thinking of Haunted House and 50 Shades of Black, but those went to theaters. But yeah, Marlon Wayans has done some pretty bad Netflix movies recently, but to see him in this was kind of a relief. But just a change of pace to show that he can do more.
Yeah.
But I'll start by saying this. And what the hell, Joe? You're the newcomer here. I'll throw it over to you after. On the Rocks is a movie that's mostly carried by sort of the different comic dynamics between Bill Murray and Rashida Jones, coupled with their sort of prickly chemistry as father and daughter. And it works mostly. But yeah. I'm somebody, I've kind of had a complicated relationship with Sofia Coppola movies throughout my time as a critic, I guess you could say, where I've liked a lot of her movies up until a point. But there's certain movies from her, and this is one of them, where I like a lot of the surrounding details and aspects of it, and I even like elements of it and scenes. But I don't know ultimately what I'm supposed to take away from it. And that's kind of where I'm at now with On the Rocks. Joe, I'll throw it over to you. Your thoughts on the Rocks?
I'm kind of the same way when it comes to Sofia Coppola as well. I love Lost in Translation. It's great to see Bill Murray reunite with her here. I thought Somewhere was good. I wasn't a fan of The Bling Ring, and I didn't like A Very Merry Christmas. So she's kind of like all over the map for me too. It's like your batting average, before I saw this film, was half. And I do agree with you, is that for me, the plot of this movie, while it could be it could all be solved by just having a conversation with Marlon Wayans, which is Rashida Jones' husband, it is a very beat by beat plot line. Nothing really surprised me here. But what's great about Sofia Coppola's directing and the people that she works with in this film especially is that she just kind of lets the actors just kind of float and just go with the motion of whatever scene they're in. And that was the same thing in Lost in Translation. It didn't really have a path to go down. You were just mostly watching Scarlett Johansson and Bill Murray just kind of live life together in Japan whenever they saw each other. And it's kind of the same thing here, too, except you have a father and daughter relationship between Bill Murray and Rashida Jones. It's that same type of style that you saw in Lost in Translation. Reminded me heavily of that with these two characters. And I thought, for the most part, as you said, it actually worked pretty good. Bill Murray, to me, is fantastic in this movie. He's kind of the opposite of his Lost in Translation character, where, instead of being, this sweet, humble, old retired actor that's doing commercials now for Scotch. He's kind of like a playboy father now that cheated on his mother's on his daughter's mother so many times. So he's the complete opposite character, but he plays it really good.
Yeah, I know. I hear a lot of what you're saying there too. Where I actually never saw Somewhere by Sofia Coppola. I like The Bling Ring. I like Lost in Translation. I like The Virgin Suicides to a point, and I like The Beguiled even too.
I haven't seen those, yeah.
And I hated A Very Merry Christmas.
Yeah.
Did anyone like that movie?
Hated that.
It felt like a paycheck movie, you know?
That was a paycheck movie. I was skeptical from the jump. That was a paycheck movie, but that's the thing where it's I like a lot of Sofia Coppola's movies. I don't love many of them. And I hate to say, because I don't want to make the enemy of a great film a very good one. But at the same time, though, this is one of those movies that I feel like could have used an extra 20 to 30 minutes to concretize its message. You don't say that very often. This is one of those movies that could have benefited from another 25 minutes, in my opinion, because it feels like it gets wrapped up anticlimactically, given all the drama and all the overthinking that sort of preceded it when Rashida Jones's character Laura thinks her husband, Marlon Wayans' character Dean, is cheating on her. I don't want to jump too far down this path. I don't want to sway Dominic's thoughts. Dominic, your general impressions of the movie, and am I crazy?
No, I don't think you are. In fact, I'm even more lost in the translation. No, I'm lost in the woods with it. No, really, I am. Just because I don't know. Was I distracted by the HOA work going on outside or anything? But like this felt so. I don't want to say aimless, because there was very clear plot points. If anything, that was the problem. But like, I guess it's just hard to relate to these characters. I don't know, and it's not even that you have to be married in order to relate to these people. But like, it's another one of those. She's having a kind of a midlife crisis, and having troubles with her marriage, but like when she's talking to her friends on the phone about it, she's got like this massive clean bookshelf behind her in this beautiful New York City Manhattan apartment, and she has this giant desk with a very nice modern looking laptop, and she's having trouble writing, because that's her job. She's a writer, and her dad's bothering her, but he's like this extremely wealthy dude who orders steak and spinach at the local club, of which he knows everyone at a dozen of them in his, and he has a chauffeur and all that stuff. I don't know. Again, I don't want to get political or economic about any of this. I'm just saying it's just hard to relate to these people when the aesthetic is just so beyond anything I will probably ever experience in my lifetime. Say even with like Marlon Wayans, I'm like, all your coworkers are extremely attractive, you son of a bitch. Like, I don't know. That shouldn't matter, but.
Can I interrupt you by saying the one thing? It reminds me of my favorite North Central College, which we are all alumni of. My favorite North Central College stereotype, where it's like sips $8 Boiler House coffee and adjusts beanie on app and puts away Apple laptop. Let me tell you about privilege.
Yeah, dude, absolutely. Now, on the other hand, I'm not saying that upper middle class people can't have emotional problems, that you forfeited your right to any of this, or that, and certainly it's good to see, people of color being shown.
It's just that the upper class go on extravagant adventures with Bill Murray to solve them in New York.
Right? That's the weird thing. It's like a fantasy.
Go to Mexico.
It's really more like the story of like, hey, what if Bill Murray was my dad? Yeah, it'd be really cool. He'd take me to like Mexico. Now it's like a fan fiction.
I just want to go to a Cub game with them, truthfully.
Oh, I would kill for that, yo. Oh my god! But it's Bill Murray at his most Bill Murray, which has just been his shtick for the past 10 years now. I'm not even that well versed in his stuff. I need to really rewatch Lost in Translation, because 2003. It's like I didn't know what the hell was going on at the time. Marie Antoinette I actually know more of from Sofia Coppola's works, and I think that stuck with me more because it was very stylized, very ahistorical.
That was one I didn't care for personally. That was another one I didn't care for by her.
Yeah. After that I jumped off the Coppola train. I didn't really watch the Bling Ring or anything past that, except Merry Christmas, and I was just like, this is really gonna end with Miley Cyrus doing like a little jig at the end. Okay, whatever. Anyway, sorry, back on track here. It's the moral quandary is just so frustrating, right? Because it's another one of those classic, are they cheating? Is my partner, not even like husband or wife, like, is my partner cheating? Are they? Well, let's go on wacky adventures and see what's really going on here. And again, this feels like it's very modern looking, but even then its plot is just so aged. its framework is just so aged that it's hard to, and they don't really do anything with it too much, except maybe that the partner, who in this case is the father, and a very eccentric one at that, being Bill Murray, he's got his own emotional baggage there, and that's really all that we're. Honestly, I was more so wrapped up in the relationship between Murray and Jones than anything with Marlon Wayans, who's just kind of there. We can celebrate that he's not being Marlon Wayans, but but other than like he's just whatever. Not to say he wasn't trying, but he didn't have much to work with. So it goes scene by scene. It's very as you said, very kind of one note, very on a very clear and present track that doesn't deviate much from it at all, except the occasional curveball by Murray that makes things somewhat interesting. But man, it's just hard. It's just incredibly hard for me to relate to these people. Particularly, like Bill Murray gets out of a police stop by just being Bill Murray and like, hey, I know your dad. I'm like, wow, if this isn't the hardest flex of white privilege that I've ever seen in my life. Again, God bless Bill Murray. He's a national treasure. I love the guy, but like it hits differently now in 2020, those kinds of scenes. And there have been plenty of scenes where a character gets out of a traffic stop because they're the character. They're that kind of character. It's just weird now. And I'm not going to write a whole thesis on that, but it's just hard to relate to, and it's very one track. So it's very blah here for me. So I don't know how you guys want to take that.
I'll say this because I do think your criticisms are fair, and I agree with a handful of them too. Because this is obviously one of those movies where it's like, obviously the overarching thing is he cheating on her. But like then it's like, oh well, the real journey is the friends we make along the way. So now we're watching her kind of mend bridges with her father, whom she's had a complicated relationship with. I'll say this: the external gravity is what kept me in tune with it. Let me explain. This movie's very much about a father-daughter relationship. We don't get many of those in movies. You really don't. America hasn't exhausted that trope, really, about father and daughter relationships. At least in my opinion, it hasn't. Well, consider this. Sofia Coppola is the daughter of Francis Ford Coppola, who basically invented the modern language of movies, of cinema, really. You have Rashida Jones, who is the daughter of Quincy Jones, the Grammy-nominated record producer. So what I took with this is that there's something to be said about a movie who comes from a woman whose father is basically an industry mogul even to this day. You can feel a type of like interfamilial tension there. And the fact too, I would even say with like Coppola, with Sofia Coppola, she was kind of, she was made a star in The Godfather Part 3 before she even knew what the hell she wanted to do, or if she, like her father, excelled behind the camera. And I can imagine growing up with such a powerful, influential person as your father. There's a push-pull there where it's like, hey, I'm still your daughter, or like, I'm still going through stuff, and you're always busy, or you don't seem to care about what's happening in the home. I'm not saying I could write a biography on Rashida Jones and Sofia Coppola's upbringing. All I'm saying is that especially because Sofia wrote this movie, I can definitely infer that there were some personal elements in the relationship between Felix and his daughter Laura here. And that's kind of what held the movie together, in my opinion, with me, was that like I think this is a personal, as linear as it is and as kind of strange as it is wrapped up, there's a personal tinge here, I think, for Sofia Coppola, which you don't always get with her movies, which are very gauzy and costumed, like The Beguiled, like Marie Antoinette. Joe, what say you on the matter?
I get what you're saying too, with the whole, you can see kind of like the connection to her and Ford Coppola as well. I get that. Speaking of Rashida Jones, though, I saw a lot of people criticizing her, saying that like until Bill Murray and her start connecting, they go on, this whole adventure to find out if Marlon Wayans is cheating on her and whatnot. Everybody was saying like she kind of just seemed like lost on screen, like out of it and everything. I forgot like the exact thing it was, but like I saw a lot of criticism saying that like for like until Bill Murray comes and joins her, she's not really doing much on screen, and she kind of just seems, not to do, doesn't know what to do. And I kind of thought that was the point to her character, was like, the beginning,
Yeah.
she's going through all of this, and with her and Marlon Wayans and everything, that like, she kind of seems lost. And I'm surprised I saw that criticism a lot, because it reminded me also like the first 20 minutes of Lost in Translation, when Scarlett Johansson is also literally lost until Bill Murray comes into her life. Like I kept seeing that throughout so many reviews that like I was reading after I watched the film, to kind of get like, to see what everybody else was thinking about it. And I was just like, really? Because I honestly thought Rashida Jones and Bill Murray too, they were great together. And Marlon Wayans as well. I never got to see Requiem for a Dream, so I never actually got to see him ever do a dramatic performance before until this film. And I gotta say, he was really good
in this movie.
Yeah.
Like I said, he's not given a lion's share of stuff to do, but I understand. I mean, it's just a relief in some ways not seeing Marlon Wayans kind of make an ass of himself. Yeah, it's kind of a relief in that respect. I understand that, but yeah, that criticism levied against Rashida Jones, I really don't see, because they don't give her much to do until her father comes into play. I mean, the most significant scenes, I guess you could say, besides her finding the toiletry case in her husband's luggage, is the scenes when she sort of just brushes off and doesn't have any kind of conversation with her friend played by Jenny Slate.
Yeah.
Those are really the only other moments where you see anything. But I liked your earlier point too, where it's like, you know what, if this were real life, this whole thing would be settled in about 20 minutes if she just grabs that toiletry case, walks into her husband's room and be like, "Oh, what bitch does this belong to?"
But I understand. It's movie world, so we gotta.
I get it, but like at the same time, it's like, oh my god, who's so like at the party when she meets Fiona, Jessica Henwick's character, who's her husband's attractive.
And even then, she's like out of it and everything too.
Like they're having a drink at the party, and she'll just look over to her husband or something. And if this was real life, and be like, "Oh, so you want to screw her, don't you?" And then it's an argument. Like, you know what I mean? Like, that's how real life would work. But no, we have to like ride around in a bright red convertible through the streets of Manhattan, chasing down a taxi. Like, it's very much movie land. It's very much idealized. And there's a couple good scenes throughout the movie, like that scene I mentioned in the bright red convertible. I do like that scene. I kind of like that cop interaction. I understand where Dom's coming from about the sort of social politics that come into play with it.
It's all external stuff. I don't want to harp on it too much, but it's just something in the back of my mind,
At the end of the day, though, I just don't know what the hell I'm supposed to take away from the movie. That's my biggest gripe, and I think we could even really kind of touch on this before closing arguments and stuff. I don't know what to take away from this, because it's obviously a movie where the focal point is the father and daughter friction, which is all right. But then the way it sort of cleanly gets wrapped up at the end, almost anticlimactically, and given some of the sort of bustling comic energy at play throughout this movie, whether verbally or just, in terms of sequences like the convertible scene, it just ends so softly. And then you're like left to bleed. Like, you're like, is this like a rom-com in a way? Are they trying to go for something dramatic? I don't know. The ending lacked complete and total heft for me there. What say you, Dominic?
I'm going to have to concur with that, just because I think even less so, I was less focused just because I was just so frustrated by where the movie was not going, or just kind of where it was kind of one. Again, it's weird to say that it's very one track and not doing adventures, while also saying that it's wandering all over the place, because it really wasn't. But it really felt like Bill Murray was like the manic pixie dream girl, like not much substance there in terms of the relationship that I found. There were like pivotal scenes where, of course, they did confront they confront the emotional weight there front and center. But not nearly enough. And I could tell they were trying to be clever with most of his scenes, but I don't know. It came off. Maybe this is just how Bill Murray is now, and has been, and I just haven't been getting used to it, or maybe it just doesn't vibe with me, which sucks, because I love hearing about Bill Murray. Maybe I don't like watching him. I don't know. Actually, I think I need to review his stuff more specifically. But in terms of the Coppola connection, I mean, she's the director, but the connection you made, Steve, about I had that inkling that there's some father issues being kind of displayed here in some way through her writing, but I wanted to brush those aside just because, I don't want. I hate for her to be in the shadow of her father their whole life. But I guess if you the way you put it, the way you put it, I was like, yeah, no, this really does feel like that, doesn't it? It's a father daughter joint with and this is Sofia Coppola, and then I knew this, but I completely forgot. But yeah, Rashida Jones too, her father, Quincy freaking Jones. The composer for the Austin Powers theme in the 60s, which everyone knows it from. That was a real song, by the way, before it became an Austin Powers thing. But yeah, I don't know, and just the fact that it does not do the job that it sets out to do at the beginning, because the reveal of where the big plot point, the big thing that everything was driving, the big mystery here, when it comes to fruition, when we get the big reveal, it's like, did he not? It just falls flat, and the resolution is just so obvious, and it's so disappointing to me that it really felt like a waste of my time. Which sucks, because I was hoping for a little bit more, particularly with Marlon Wayans really trying there. I was hoping for him to get a big scene, which he kind of did, but it really wasn't. It was very blasé. This I'm being very, very harsh here, but I think it just I can't shake now that this is just fan fiction, and like, this is what it's like to have Bill Murray as a dad instead of my dad, Francis. This is what it would have been. And also, apparently, she's having trouble with her husband. I don't know, but
well, that's why I brought up the Coppola connection. That's why I brought up I could sense that maybe there was like a personal story, father-daughter issue there. It's like, believe me, I'm like, let me tell you, it takes one to know one, man. We can talk about daddy issues if you want. Like, we can go on about that. I think the word there is obvious. Like the obvious conclusion that this comes to. And there's a couple unexpected turns like throughout, just like, what, her and Bill Murray do, what Rashida Jones and Bill Murray do, but there's nothing extremely surprising in that regard. We should probably give closing thoughts on this, at least, because I think we've kind of, there's not a lot to talk about this. Some people were comparing it to a Woody Allen movie, and and I could see some similarities in tone and just, I guess, in contextualization with New York. My buddy who I talked to, him and I are big Woody Allen fans, and he said it best, though. He said, if Woody Allen made a movie this dull, he's like, if Woody Allen made a movie this dull, we just say he'd make another one next year. I'm not going to go that far, but I understand the sentiment. But I give it 2.5 out of 4 stars. I do, because I think the external gravity there of Coppola and Jones, I don't think that can be understated, and I think the comic dynamic between Jones and Murray carries this movie. But there's a lot underneath it that I don't think is fully realized, and that happens a lot with me and Sofia Coppola movies. I didn't say it earlier, but if I had to pick, I think the Bling Ring is probably my favorite of hers, especially the year it came out, because it fits well with like Spring Breakers and Pain and Gain, the Michael Bay movie.
Oh yeah.
So that was like a really good trilogy of movies right there, and I think it complemented those. Whether that says it's a great movie on its own, I can't really say on that, but I like that one by her. This one, not as much. I give it 2.5 out of 4 stars. Joe, your closing thoughts on the Rocks?
I'm right there with you. 2.5 out of 4 stars for me as well. Like I said, I enjoyed watching Rashida Jones and Bill Murray together on screen, but it is beat by beat numbers, plot line here. And even like we've been saying, we would love, and Steve and I both agreed on this, and I think Dom did as well, we would have loved to see the movie go on for 20 or 30 minutes. Because when you get to this ending and the revelation comes up, and then they have the argument and blah, 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 and it's just like, I want it to go a little further. I wanted this to wrap up further than it does in that actual film. But like what we get in terms of the whole package, I think it's fine for what it is. This is one of the better Sofia Coppola films, indeed. I agree with Steve on that. So for me, I'm also just at 2.5 out of 4 stars.
Yeah, for me, I gotta give it two. I gotta give it just right there too, because this movie is just there. Doesn't because the main selling point is Bill Murray, and then right behind that probably Sofia Coppola, and then probably even beyond that is they're reuniting after the critically acclaimed A Very Merry Christmas. But in terms of like how the movie plays out, what Bill Murray here does. Who, I mean, yeah, Bill Murray is entertaining. He's just an entertaining dude to watch. You could probably watch a TV documentary series, like a reality show documentary on him, and it'd just be pleasant. And you do get that a little bit here, but in the context of this big mystery, in the context of the emotional weight that is in the background, in the context of that he's a really freaking rich dude, and is making it very hard to relate to, not just for him, which is fine because he's almost a caricature in many ways, but particularly Rashida Jones too, for her character, who I wish had more to do, because I do believe she can act pretty well, and she can make some good stuff. But unfortunately, for her here and for Marlon Wayans, they're just overshadowed. But even if Bill Murray wasn't in the picture, he wouldn't have much to do. So the plot is very one track, straight ahead, and when the mystery is finally solved or revealed, not much happens, which is surprising, because for something that was as wacky as Bill Murray, zipping along in a red convertible, you think it'd be a little more exciting than that. So I can't. It sounds like I'm being very harsh with this movie. Maybe I am, but I think it's just there. Two out of four for me.
Somebody on Letterboxd, the great site Letterboxd, said it best. They said this is the type of movie. I wish I could pull it up to quote them, but they said this is the type of movie that a mom puts on after giving her kid a melatonin gummy, and she's got a glass of wine in one hand, and then afterwards, after watching the movie, proclaims, "I loved it," and then forgets about it by next afternoon.
I do wonder, because I know that we were supposed to do closing thoughts, but I do wonder if Coppola and Jones, I don't know how this was decided creatively. I wonder if like Coppola and Jones looked at some of these scenes and were like, this is awesome. Like, yeah, this is our story. This is, what it's like to be your average American woman living in Manhattan. Like, I don't know. It was giving me weird vibes in that sense. So yeah.